everybody. I want to welcome you back to another Fluid webinar series event. Very excited about this month's webinar. And so as you guys know, we've kind of started doing an industry related series, and this month is all about real estate marketing. And so today we're going to talk real estate marketing tips and tools and have a bit of an expert discussion between myself and Chad. And we did have one other guest for those of you who signed up. Mark was unable to attend today, which we will kind of speak on his behalf, but we apologize for any of you who were hoping he'd be with us. But in the meantime, I don't think I know anybody more knowledgeable about the real estate industry, whether it's just the history of it or just Chad's expertise, which is in the building community. But before I kind of butcher it myself, I'm going to turn it over to you, Chad. Anyway, our guest today is Chad Bria. He is the digital marketing consultant for BDX. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you.
Chad, if you don't mind, if you give us a quick background.
Sure. Yeah, I've been in the digital space for just about 20 years, and specifically in the residential new construction side of things for about 17. Former Utah resident. I now live in Phoenix, but I work with right now a few dozen builders at my peak, about 126 home builders coast to coast, and helping them with their digital footprint, expand from traditional or old school marketing to digital, newer marketing to help keep up with the next generation, which is millennials.
Absolutely. Probably starting to buy a lot of houses right now.
They're actually the biggest generation of home buyers we've seen.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about that and many other things. Just for a little bit of housekeeping, we are live on Facebook, and hopefully some of you are with us there. If you are attending this webinar, you can just go to our Facebook page, so facebook.com/getfluid, and you will be able to watch this live as well. For those of you on Facebook, if you want to get the slides, you can find the link in the comments on our Facebook page. So other than that, we will also be live tweeting, and so you can always reach us at our hashtag #FluidWebinarSeries, and you can reach us direct at our handle @GetFluid. And so before we jump into any one topic, I kind of want to turn it back to you, Chad. Give us a quick history. As we all know, was a huge housing bubble, and we've had a recession, and many of you who are attending this probably have been affected by that in one way or another. And so maybe just a quick history of where we've come from in the last 50 or so years.
Sure. So the trend has been upward as far as the new home sales, and that's really where my focus is, and what more of the statistics that I know. I do know some of the resale marketing and some of that information, but only from a competitive standpoint. Sure. To keep our builders up to date. But we hit the peak, and those of you who I don't think here in Utah you felt it as bad as places like Las Vegas and Phoenix, right. Where it really peaked. There were way too many homes on the market, and then we hit 2008-9, and we've kind of come back a little bit. But in the new home industry specifically, one of the challenges we see, and one of the hurdles we're trying to help builders jump through, is that even though we're climbing back up to where we should be as kind of national averages for home closings, the residential new construction side of sales, so not the resale stuff, but we're actually losing market share to the resale industry. So for us, that's concerning. We actually used to have about, on a national average, it would be about I would say 12 to 15% market share on used homes. Mm-hmm. Used homes, I live in a used home, so please don't be offended by my terms. Versus new homes now, it's only about maybe 7 to 8%. And so what's changed? Yeah,
50%.
It's a big issue. So what we try to do, and some of the things I think we're going to go through today, is really what our theory is that between 2008 and 2012. Technology got much better, but builders were kind of staying quiet. They didn't want to spend money. They didn't want to take really any chances. But that didn't mean that media and marketing and technology moved on. Right. So we have a lot of catch up to do inside of residential new construction.
And we're definitely going to be talking about that. And then just kind of localizing that, I know for the recession, St. George was hit pretty hard, mm-hmm. and there was definitely some patches in Utah. And for those of you listening, you probably are well aware of how it affected you. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things, talking about where we were at, but actually where we're at right now. And Chad, can you tell us a little bit about, at least in the new home building, I think there's some big news that you can kind of update us on.
Yeah, there's actually been over the last probably 12 to 18 months, there's been international acquisitions of home builders in the United States. One of the biggest is Sumitomo. They actually, I think it was beginning of February, acquired stake in Edge Homes.
Right.
Edge is, I believe, the second largest builder in the state. And then there was even one just a few weeks later, and I'm gonna ruin the name. It's I think it's Sekuisi Homes, and they acquired Woodside Homes. Woodside is a multi-state builder whose headquarters are here in Salt Lake City, and they are a zero energy home builder. That's really going to be a game changer for a lot of builders who are building efficient homes and building the green home. And they've specifically targeted Utah, which I find interesting because Utah does have a fantastic economy and growing economy, and I think things are very positive here. Those are, while we don't know a whole lot about what the companies are planning on doing, it's more of there's some interest. All of you who are building here in Utah, pay attention, because they're not just going to come with digital marketing, they're going to come with whole home changes and new technologies.
Right, and actually knowing that that's going to be coming, and with the loss of market share for the resale homes, how do you think this will affect your market share? Will you think you will gain with this type of a thing, or any guesses?
Potentially. The reason is we know that in Japan they have different building techniques that might actually speed up the process of getting a home to market.
Okay.
Now, if they can get away with doing that, where they don't have to get into any of the lending laws or any of the restrictions that might be regulated on how many spec homes you can build or how much money you can borrow to build, a speculative or quick move-in home, they might be able to come in and actually put their own dollars behind building homes and not be regulated in that. They could actually help increase the inventory of new homes, which inventory in Utah as a whole is very, very low. And that's also an
Extremely
unhealthy
low
market.
right now.
So it could actually be a really great benefit in controlling cost increases for those who live here and looking for a first home and don't want to spend $380,000 on a condo.
Right.
Right. So it could be a very good thing for the market.
Yeah, and so we actually will talk as we go about some marketing tactics, both for the first-time home buyer, which is probably going to be resold home or used home, and then kind of second homes, meaning not necessarily that you own two homes, but just a second home purchase. So we'll talk about marketing tactics to address both of those issues. But I definitely think this is a major thing, and as an agency, we are monitoring it very closely because we know how that's going to affect our media dollars, and we're really trying to do as well as we can with going in with accurate budgets to our clients. And so you feel like agencies are always bringing larger budgets too, but that could be a very significant effect that this has. And so if you are starting to hear that, no, there might be some marketing trends affecting that, and it's not just agencies trying to get another buck out of you. Real quickly, we can probably fly through this, as most of you on listening to this probably really understand marketing then and now for the real estate industry, and for the most part it's just behind. But quickly, I want to just show a slide of the modern digital. I mean, way beyond real estate or any industry in general, marketing has just skyrocketed in the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but especially even the last 5 years, marketing has gone just exponentially faster, to the point that cable is actually able to geo-target, television, billboard. All of these things are actually getting to the consumer level, where that traditional model, you kind of get the scarcity, and you this left side of this slide, you kind of just see these old magazine, television things that actually still really work in the real estate industry. I mean, the real estate magazines right now in Utah, I see them even continuing to pop up, and just large investments, and I think people kind of value that. But just kind of moving to the right side of this is how many different opportunities, and especially from a digital perspective, that we now have. And I know maybe, Chad, you can even speak in the last 5 years. Do you know how many products that you've seen BDX come out with specifically in the last little while?
In terms of for marketing, we probably come up with 10 to 15 every year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's significant. And what we try to do is look at other industries that really are ahead of real estate. You look at, I think we have some slides on the auto industry. coming up. That's one that we really focus on. We have now, so actually I'll tell you, this is a good story. Bosch appliances, they're pretty high end. It's not your, you don't typically get them with a first home or a condo or townhome.
Right.
They stopped showing at industry shows. They stopped having a booth and showing off their ovens and
Right.
cooktops and things like that, and started debuting at technology shows.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's more technology now than it is sort of manufactured product.
Yeah.
And so we actually have started attending those shows. We attend CES. We attended South by Southwest a couple weeks ago.
Sure.
So we're trying to stay more technology, and then how do we see that work within the home building industry or the real estate industry? And we'll take those and put new products and services out.
Kind of interesting on that is just GE's commercials right now, which are recruiting, but they're all talking about, I work for a manufacturer, but they're getting tech jobs, and they're all excited that they got a tech job, and then they go, be like, well, who are you working for? But I mean, GE is actually putting a lot of money into that. Chad, you want to just talk a little bit about, as we have been talking about existing versus new, and some of the comparisons of what is important?
Yeah, so here in the state, I attended a seminar a couple of weeks ago by Myers Research. They do a lot of research for different markets, and they do it, specifically for the market they're coming to.
Sure.
And they showed a slide that said, if I remember correctly, there's about a 22% premium on prices for new homes versus resale homes. And what's interesting about that is if you look at a slide like this, you can see on our right-hand side, all of the big green bars are the reasons people think a new home is better than a resale home. And on the left-hand side are people that think resale homes are better than new homes. And the major one, the one that everybody really agrees on, is energy efficiency. A new home is substantially more efficient when it comes to energy costs. And regardless if you go with a green builder or a zero energy home, things like that, just code alone in the last 5 years has forced the industry to build more efficient, nicer homes. Sure. And so energy efficiency is actually, if you're trying to sell a new home, is the number one conversation to have. You really can't sell me on my house that was built in 2001 being more energy efficient than a brand new home, because even with 15 solar panels on my house, my bills are higher. Mm-hmm. I know this for a fact.
Absolutely.
So when you look at kind of this graph and go down on piece by piece, the ability to customize a home is a new feature that should absolutely be spoken about all the time. You have a growing family, we can make your house grow with you. We can create a room that's a loft today that you can actually turn into a bedroom if you have another child. I mean, those are all things you can sell in a new home that you can't really on a resale because it's done. Mm-hmm. It's completed. Right. So we actually encourage, and by the way, this is a survey we did back in about 2014. It was a national survey. We put a number of focus groups together, put a lot of money into it to help move that needle. Like I was saying, we only have about a 7% market share. Mm-hmm. We want to move that needle up a little bit because, to be frank, every home built is 286 jobs. Mm-hmm. From the capacitor that goes into the circuit board that goes into an air conditioner. I mean, it's actually a really good thing to buy a new home. And so
awesome stat.
We encourage it. I know. I wish Mike Rowe were listening.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I would encourage you to come look at this slide, especially if you want to sell or market new homes. This is really valuable information.
Excellent. So kind of just wanted to talk a little bit about the auto versus home market growth in the marketing industry and whatnot. And so I don't know if you wanted to take that, Chad, or...
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And I could pull it up, but for the sake of time and to allow for questions at the end, I'm not going to. But certainly you could reach out to Dustin, who can put us in contact. I have an iPad app that will show you. I can actually sit inside of a Volkswagen Bug. Let's just pick on the Bug.
Of course.
That's a $27,000 car. Mm-hmm. It's nowhere near what a new home costs.
Sure.
I can sit in there, in the passenger seat, flip it on, and I can point to something in the car and start a video. And it will show me how to handle that thing in my car. I mean, this is all augmented reality that I'm using inside of a $27,000 vehicle purchase. Mm-hmm. We don't have anything like that.
Yeah.
You're buying a $300,000 home. What do we have that could compare to something like that? And you think about it, not just from the marketing standpoint and I think you have a slide about this a little bit later, not just bringing a home buyer in, but treating them with such service and such proactive, and technology makes it cheap to do that, to the point where when they're in and they're happy, they give you referrals. or
Right.
maybe they buy again from you in 6 to 10 years, which is the average, time somebody lives in a home. So there's all of those things that we could really be looking at the auto industry and saying, that's not a terribly expensive thing to do. When you think about just the experience, it's a pretty fascinating thing to look at.
Absolutely, and at the towards the end of this, we definitely have actionable tools and tips that you can use, and so we're going to list those things off and things that are kind of helping the real estate industry get up to speed with the automotive. And I know that BDX is playing a major role in that, and we've been utilizing them to get a lot more interactive and digital and some of that fun experiential stuff. Let's just talk a little bit about out-hustled by other industry, and we kind of just touched on automotive, and so we'll leave that just as, I wouldn't even venture to talk about tech, or software. Yeah. So it's very out there, but I want to turn it back just to the resale home versus new home and let you address these slides as well.
Sure. So it's really interesting is that in a new home, there's options, right? Anybody who's purchased or looked into a new home, I can option a kitchen, I can change things around. I have so much potential with that house. And in a resale home, it's done, it's finished. Unless you go remodel it, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. But I say out hustle because the slides you're looking at, these are two resale homes. I think they're in Austin on the market, and we've got one has 24 photos, the other has 34 photos. And then we flip to the same market, same price point. We have two photos. One is 5 elevations, potentially in black and white stick drawn format, and the next one is 2 color floor plans, which actually it's good to have color floor plans. That's better than what's out there for the most part. But we are out hustled 24 to 34 pictures to really just 2. And we have so many things because if I'm putting Whirlpool products in my brand new home, mm-hmm. I could take all of the Whirlpool marketing and just use those.
Yeah.
Right. I don't even have to come up with that medium. That's out there. Mm-hmm. I could take pictures of what I've built. I could do all sorts of different things with it. Virtually, I could let you come in and actually change the kitchen to a totally different package, from our standard to our gourmet kitchen to our stainless. Mm-hmm. That technology exists. It's not expensive.
Absolutely.
And I have those options like that.
Yeah.
Pick them. For me, it's like it's a totally different product.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new home, not a regular old house.
I don't know if you guys missed that, but literally, we work with builders, and this is kind of what we get a lot of the time. But using the Whirlpool example, that is an actionable thing you can be doing right now, and I hope some of you that has triggered a thought for what have I provided on my website, and how many images do I have, and how can I augment them immediately? Images sell houses. Mm-hmm. That's the single. We're getting towards video that's really making the sales now, but the fact is, images sell your house, and I can't tell you how often I see pages that have a lot of text. This is an experience. You're going to live here, and so we need to make people feel that. Speaking of the experience, let's go into just kind of the new home buying experience. There was the traditional model that we've all kind of done. It's been a little bit flipped with the technology and different things. So here's kind of just a political cartoon, more back to the automotive side of things, but not to make any... we don't reference General Motors, or we have no dog in this fight in any way. We just thought the cartoon itself was relevant to what we're talking about. But just as the concept of, and I'm missing the word,
It's probably planned obsolescence.
Yeah. Thank you, sorry. But yeah, just the fact that these things are planned to be going out, and I know, Chad, you have a lot to kind of say on this.
Yeah, when it comes to, that's one of the things we struggle with. One of the slides earlier was that people believe the quality of construction in a resale home is better than the quality of construction in today's homes. And I believe that actually comes from the planned obsolescence theory, in that after 10 years you've got to replace 5 things on your car or buy a new car or truck.
Right.
And that's the business model. And again, not to pick on GM or Dodge or anybody, that's just what the mentality is out there today. Versus when you look at that from a new home perspective, that just can't be. We are mandated 1 year, 2 year, 10-year, 30-year warranties. Mm-hmm. That means the construction quality has to be there. I could look at a 1980 home that might look great, but you don't see the guts. You don't know what the walls are like. You don't know what the R ratings are. Here in Utah, you have some very extreme temperatures. We were just kind of joking about earlier.
Yeah.
What does older homes do versus what do new homes do? And not to pick on any builders, but there are several builders in this market that build very, very efficient homes. and the quality is top notch and better than anything you can find in established neighborhoods.
Absolutely. Well, I think we know with anything, even this, there's those who are really kind of doing it right and those that aren't, and so you want to definitely be watching that and know what to look for. But I also wanted to kind of just talk a little bit about, from the traditional change. This is a billboard, and in a way it represented something that Chad and I have been talking about. But it's more about billboards going to the metro areas and the movement of the message, where we once were going after the car itself, but as we have increased public transit, in Utah especially, I mean, we have more public transit now than we've ever had before. And so where are you moving that message to? And so just with that breaking the traditional mold, there are new options and new user behaviors that we really need to account for.
Yeah, and actually to add to that, because I live in Phoenix where we have almost no public transportation. We have buses, and taxis, of course. We actually have very few billboards, and so the billboards that are out there are super expensive, but they're always in traffic jam areas, right? They're always, where you're really not going to pay attention to the billboard because you don't want to rear end the car in front of you because it's rush hour. Versus the light rail system here, for instance, is fantastic. I've used it a couple of times. I've been on front runner after a Jazz game, and it's packed. I mean, I would absolutely look to that before a billboard. And being able to put a QR code or something, because you've got somebody who can use their phone now, versus being behind a steering wheel where it's illegal.
And then just kind of taking that even one step further, I mean, the concept of the phone is epically changed the world. And so there's just nothing that was once past normal that is now, because the phone changes the game entirely. And for those of you out there who may not be aware of what's coming with billboards, but the old model of billboards used to use basically like polk data and different information as far as people's neighborhoods, and so you put a billboard near the neighborhood of affluency that kind of matched yours. But the fact is, people drive from all over the place, and so there's a lot of your target audience passing a billboard that's not getting credit for it because it's not in the right neighborhood. And so now what they're doing based on the phone is they are mapping your device ID to the person and getting the demographics of those people and telling you how many times that person is passing the billboard. So it's actually real time and real data to tell you who these people are that are seeing the billboard and how often they are. So you can pick billboards not by neighborhoods anymore, but actual people driving by. And so just a huge game changer. And if you,
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. The phone is it's incredible. Let's talk a little bit just about the frequency and reach. And there's a few things as far as, are we getting enough frequency and reach? And I think that kind of going back to the previous slide of how we're getting out hustled, definitely showing that in the resale market there's a lot more frequency. And so this slide just really quickly kind of shows for a more generic marketing approach of how often you might be sending something. I don't actually even totally agree with this slide. I just wanted to have it represent that I think it's good for you to map out your content strategy to say how often are we touching them. So if you are selling a home, when you're in that sales process, what type of communication is that salesperson following up with after the person has come in for a tour? How often is that versus, do you have a newsletter, and is that a monthly type of a thing, and what type of content is that? And so not necessarily using this pyramid itself, but maybe building your own is the task. And I think that a lot of people don't do that. And we'll talk more about kind of content and things of that nature. But content, to me, planning content is the single best thing any business can do in the current marketing world. I mean, content, they say, is king. I have an argument against that too, but content really does just kind of build everything else out, and marketing trickles down from there. Sales cycle and buyer types. Do you want to kind of just speak to the modern day sales cycle in the new home?
So in residential new construction, the most common mistake people make are, I have a lead, they're going to buy in 3 months. And the fact is that because we can get every piece of information we need online today, we have a much longer sales cycle. So what we've actually found is on a new home, it's actually about 9 to 12 months. Will you still get your 3-4 month buyers? Absolutely. You have a lot of jobs coming into this market in particular. Any area that might have some tech jobs coming up, you'll see a bit of a quicker cycle. But you talked about the second home or the move out buyers. They're not in a hurry. They're going to do their research. They're going to do their due diligence. So you might get a lead. You've got to nurture that lead. And actually going back to that pyramid, I think we could probably come at it from a number of different angles. We have actually a whole message map we recommend, what to talk about, those kinds of things. But that cycle is much longer. We're seeing 8, 10, 12 touches before you really, start engaging with that potential home shopper. And then you have to stay on top of them because there's realtors. I can find a realtor, particularly in Utah. There's lots of realtors per capita. That could mess up the sale because they might have some listings they want to, represent. Right. Yeah. So it's a bit of a longer sales cycle, and then the new home construction journey itself, which is I think the next slide, is a very, very emotional ride.
So roller coaster already.
It is. It's a roller. It really is. You start off very, very excited, and then you start to have these doubts, and you just kind of have these up and downs the whole way. And realistically, there are a number of spots where somebody might go, "This is too much. I want to get a realtor." And there's nothing wrong with that. And there are plenty of great realtors who know everything about new home sales, and they're professionals, and they know exactly what to do and how to get somebody through that process. But for the most part, I would say 8 out of 10 people just don't know the process. It's just too confusing, and they get frustrated. And to be honest, home builders don't necessarily map that out. We actually suggest on your website you talk about the process because that's where you lose people. And then you have the up and down, and it is an emotional roller coaster. But what we actually surveyed was at the end, and this is very important. There's something we call the joy gap, and it is when you close on your used or resale home, you feel X. Versus if you close on a new home, there's actually a giant joy gap because you're done, the process is over, you're relaxed, and you can really enjoy, gardening, not having projects.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have had this question asked to me recently, Chad, and so while it might be kind of on the darker side of things, maybe you can shed some insight. How long after joy does sometimes the person, we talked about you buy the resold home and you don't get to see the bones necessarily, and somehow that can happen with new homes as well, right? You get to this joy phase. Do you have any kind of experience with what happens after joy and how long until maybe you start to see little things that they might find, and you get those reviews? I'm kind of talking about reviews specifically.
Yeah, reviews are tough. It's a very difficult thing in new home construction because you have a lot of builders, and this is just a generalization. There are some fantastic builders out there who are great at follow-up. But you have a lot that just kind of disappear afterwards. And there's that whole 80-20 rule where you warranty something and only a percentage is going to follow through on it. So everything in the house is warranted for a year. So you really should have a good experience, and hopefully the builder's being very proactive, reaching out, asking if you're happy, yada yada. And there are actually some other great ideas like neighborhood enhancement things and things that builders can do to improve that joy or extend that joy. But yeah, realistically, after a year, things start to settle. I live in Phoenix. Our dirt moves. It's like a glacier. Yeah. You'll have some sheetrock pops and things like that, and depending on the builder, they'll come take care of it. Some builders have a 2-year warranty after you purchase, but there's really structurally there's 10, roofs are 30. It's you're not going to have to do any major projects, but certainly, you might have to put blinds in and some window coverings or sunshades if you live in Phoenix, or you might have to buy a snowblower if you live here.
Yeah, absolutely.
That kind of stuff. So there is a lot of that, but really truly there is this joy of it's done, it's complete, and there's a statistic floating around that. Something like 50% of people who buy a home to remodel it to make it their own just dread it. They're just so disappointed that they made that decision because HGTV makes it look so fantastic and amazing, and that's television. It's not even reality television. So there, you take into consideration those projects, a remodel. About a year and a half ago, I remodeled my kitchen. We couldn't cook. Yeah. For
I remember sitting
a month.
On the floor. Oh yeah.
So, but that took 16 years. Right. Before I made that call. So it's going to depend. Some builders are fantastic at staying on top of making sure the customers are happy.
Absolutely. And I think kind of for both resold and new homes, to extend the joy is really what you said from the very beginning, but that communication and being proactive. If you have a problem, address it. That's the single thing that we can really tell people about reviews. We know that homes are going to have a problem. Like, it's just not a perfect world. And I think even the consumer understands, like, this is a complex beast and there's a lot of moving pieces. And so it's going to happen. It's the silence that people get really pissed off about. And that's when you start to brew. And so just make sure that as far as extending joy, if you're being proactive and they feel that you're on their side, whether it's right or wrong, they at least feel like they can vent, and that will help lead to maybe less of the negative and more of the positive reviews and different and extending that joy.
Or they start at a 1 or a 2 star. You address it, you take it offline, and they adjust it to a 3 or 4 star because they like
Precisely.
The worst thing you can do is ignore
Absolutely.
a negative review.
Well, and I can even speak, we haven't talked a lot about this, but even for the renters market, doing rent, they're going to go on and check the property management companies. So I don't know if there's any property management, as this is kind of just real estate in general topic, but for that, I've noticed most every property management has a really low star rating. Like, it's just not very good. The ones that they're going with are the ones who are responding, because it's like, okay, there's a lot of grievances, a lot of angry people, especially on the rent world, because they have no skin in the game, right? They can say whatever they want and move out of the house or destroy the house. But really, it's the ones that have responded that make you feel a little bit safer that, hey, if my washer does go out, at least there's somebody actively monitoring this social site. So hopefully that means they also have good property management setup. So I guess actually there was a little piece to that. I don't know if you need to.
That's just kind of showing the joy gap.
Sure.
We talked about it.
Awesome. So buyer types, I actually put this one just to address generic buyer types, and so you're kind of considered 4 different buyer types, and they all have different personalities. For time's sake, we won't go really deep into the generalities. I think the slide itself is pretty self-explanatory, but the concept here is that you really have to address for all 4. And how do you do that? But that's when conversion rate optimization experts kind of come in and they put, most important stuff above the fold, because that's your kind of impulse buyer and they don't really care, they just want the information. But then you have your very analytical people who are going to scroll all the way to the bottom. And so how do you structure that page to provide all 4 types of buyers what they need when they want it? I'll let...
if I could add to that just for a second,
Sure.
it's a great slide, because if you think about it from the marketing perspective, you have all sorts of different types of people and personalities who also don't jump onto Google and do the same thing. Right? Some click on ads, some click on the second result, not the first, because they think they're cheating. I mean, everybody does a different thing, so you really have to look at all of the marketing basis and have them covered, because your analytic buyer might go, well, the number one result that showed up is the best, right?
Correct.
Versus your
numbers based.
Your expressive might wait and see the YouTube video, right? That shows up in the result. So you just you have to have it all out. You have to cast that wide net because of exactly this slide.
Absolutely. And I don't know why there should be a home slide, so we apologize. You want to take a minute to talk about home buyers if you want to. Did you have anything there? If not, we can go ahead and move on.
No, let's move on. I think we're
okay. Yeah. So, and actually, this is my passion is those of you who watch this webinar. I'm pretty infatuated with the bridge between marketing and sales, and so we'll just go ahead and briefly talk about marketing and sales and how they work together. And so kind of assistance from sales team, but you really do represent both sides. I mean, having worked with you, Chad, we are most oftentimes directly reaching out to sales. And so I think real estate, in the nature of it, with agents and buyers and things of that nature, that there's almost always like the sales is the marketing in this industry. And so I don't know if you kind of want to just talk a little bit about how assistance from sales teams has worked with you, or even direct buying maybe.
So the best example of this I can think of is what I was just talking about with the 8 to 12 touches, right? So getting an on-site, somebody sitting in a model home, to craft an email 8 to 12 times to a potential lead or potential sale, it's just not going to happen. I mean, they're not going to sit and frankly, it's not their forte. They're a salesperson. They're going to show the features and the benefits and whatnot. So you look at that, and that actually is still, to me, a function of marketing. Because you're still selling, right? But it's marketing. You've got to craft the message. It's got to look good. You've got to put it in the right time. You got to have all that put together, which is marketing. Which then, of course, hopefully by touch 4, not 8 or 12, now it becomes an engagement and it becomes sales, and you have to be able to transition that. So I actually see, and you'll see this I think in a number of bigger builders. The title is sales and marketing. It's not your marketing person into your salesperson, because that's just not enough communication.
I mean, even real estate agent school, you are taught sales and marketing. I mean,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
are expected. I mean, you are your own business, and so for that, you're both sales, you're marketing, you're pretty much everything.
Right.
So this is one of the few industries that I see uh, marketing playing a role as far as kind of the generic, but more from a content and getting the name out and your brand out into the market. But it's almost immediate that somebody wants to call you. You know, they're calling the real estate agent or they're coming in for a tour, which is going to be a face-to-face interaction. And so for me, the sales team is almost immediately put into the marketing, and we're doing some fun things right now where we're doing some personalized videos where it's actually that person's face, and so we're doing it by sales rep rather than going in with what we might do on a B2B side, which would just be a generic automation program that would be product centric, whereas what we're doing is we're selling salespeople at this point, because you like the person you buy from, and we all know we've had good and bad real estate agents, good and bad builders.
Salespeople,
Yeah, I mean,
everything.
there's a lot of it out there. There are a number of ways that sales and marketing need to be working together, and so kind of to segue that, I want to talk about what are those tools that are available to both sides at this point. This is a kind of misnomer. We're probably 5 minimum tools. We'll talk about a lot more than that, but we really do think that if you take a few of these today, this could change your business forever. I mean, these are the things that if you're not doing now, hopefully you can implement very early. And you'll hear me kind of talk through this section, but when I do marketing and when I help companies do marketing, my purpose is that you can do something pretty much immediately. There are very grand campaign tasks that can take a very long time, but in the meantime, there are very small things that can make a very big difference, and there's some tools that we can discuss about that. And so I'm going to hand it to Chad, but the case for media.
So, so I'll just go through a couple, and I think we have sort of like 10 takeaways coming up as well. And I won't just read off these bullets. But you mentioned video, right?
Oh my gosh.
So video
Love
is,
video.
Forrester Research Group has a statistic that says if a picture is truly worth 1,000 words, then video is worth 1.3 million. So you utilize video. It does a couple of things. It gets somebody more emotionally involved. It gives you 1.3 million words essentially. There's actually some SEO benefit. That's the third bullet on this slide I just had mentioned. That's one of the things you can do to capture that person who wants to watch a video rather than just read information, and there are plenty of those. So video is a fantastic one. Statistically on our site, we run 2 of the largest new home shopping sites out there. And we watch the traffic very carefully, and what we have determined is that when there is a video included in the listing, leads increase by about 28%, and click-throughs to the builder's website increase by about 36%. For video.
I mean, 1 in 4 people hitting you is going to convert at those numbers. That's an incredible lift.
It is. It's massive. So that's one of them. Another example, I had mentioned the augmented reality tool that Volkswagen has. So so one of the products we actually built, we built this a couple of years ago for a builder who just to enhance experiences inside of a master plan community. So imagine going down to Daybreak, you've got 7 different builders and all these model homes, and how do you keep it all together? Well, if you give somebody a camera, let them take pictures, they can help track it themselves, right? And I know they'll do it on their phone, but if you give them access with additional tools like here are the floor plans, here are the images, here are some homeowner testimonials in video form, those kinds of things. Well, it enhances the experience, and they can kind of guide themselves. And we enhanced it this year by creating a consumer version, so I can go to a model home, have that experience on an iPad, and then they can give me a code, and I can go home and I can continue that experience from home on my iPad.
Right.
And of course, it's technology. So do we track everything they do at home? Absolutely.
We sure do.
So, that's an example of taking something we found in the auto industry, and this didn't specifically come from Volkswagen, but taking something that's building a much better experience and turning it into the home shopping experience.
Right.
And for us, since there are premiums on new homes, that's something you should do because you're not seeing it in the resale market.
Absolutely. I mean, the case for media is apparent and real, and if those of you listening, I'm sure for the most part you're thinking like, I just want more things to give out. Every meeting I've ever been in, salespeople are saying, you know, where's my collateral, where's this, where's that, and they want it to be a little bit different. You know, we all have that floor plan sheet that we can hand out. We all have kind of similar things. I know that BDX and other providers have actually kind of digitized a lot of that and made it a lot more fun. And then one thing that you kind of mentioned that I just wanted to touch on is that they can do it with their phone, but when you build your own app or your own situation, but your own product, you can control the message at that point. And so now they're not actually comparison shopping on the web or with other pictures. They're in your platform, and it's all you all the time. And so there's a pretty good case for making that investment to control basically the message and the experience that people are having.
Aside from tracking, I'll give you the number one in the home building industry, is you can put your lender, your preferred lender, who you know will get people through and make sure they have a ceiling so they don't option themselves out of the the pricing. You can put that in there. So now I'm not searching for lenders, you've offered me.
Absolutely.
And I can qualify myself.
Well, and even off of that, basically now you have created relationships because this is such a referral-based industry. You can now actually go on the B2B side or the vendor side of what you're doing and offer a relationship product for them to, you know, why choose us and how we do it better, because they know they're going to get paid too. And so that partnership, it gets just that much more strong. And so, I mean, just tons and tons of reasons, but content is king, and different types of media really are popping up. We got drones, we've got 3D Matterports. I mean, there's just so many fun things, and buying a house is touching it. You want to sit in it, you want to see yourself in that house, living in that house, and the new media is actually allowing that to happen.
And this is just a real quick, you had kind of talked about mapping out those touches and mapping out things. This is actually what we have discovered is in the residential new construction space, and I would believe this bleeds into kind of the resale as well, is the very first qualification that a shopper is going to put themselves through is where, right? First rule of real estate, location, location, location.
Right.
So it's going to be community, amenities. I talk about any builder who's in Daybreak, the amenities there are so amazing. If you're not talking about them, you're losing. You know, build that sense of community. From there, the next step is going to be the spatial comprehension, which is, do I have a floor plan? Can I read the floor plan? Do I understand the floor plan? Can I make changes to the floor plan? You know, can I turn that den into a bedroom later if we have another child? I mean, you know, all of that is part of the spatial. And then the next piece, which is the architectural structural, and that's where you might go, well, is there R rating enough for me to be a south-facing home and not have to buy window coverings or plantation shutters right off the bat, or those kinds of things. And then that leads into, what am I putting inside of the box that you're going to build me?
Yep. And
that really is actually a fantastic way to distract somebody from worrying about making custom changes to your home. Like the biggest ache home builders have, I think, in a number of markets is when a buyer goes, can I add 2 square feet and push the garage out this? No. But you can't say no, right?
Right.
So if you can get them excited about now merchandising the inside, retailing the inside of the home, you can get them off of wanting to make those expensive changes that you really want to say no to. But you'll do anything to get the sales. So this is kind of the journey, you know, that we see. We recommend you take it and kind of map out your own, where do you want to touch and what's your messaging along this process.
Chad, I'm going to put you on the spot. So just you kind of triggered something there for me, talking about the sense of community. This very first step, we're coming with amenities, and you know, first is location. Tell me something. I'm on social media, or I'm trying to advertise on social media, and I'm using social media as a first touch. They may not know about me. This is a first experience. Can you tell us, as far as what you've seen, is it just brand presence, just recognition that this brand exists? Is it amenities? Is it community? What do you think the best first touch for somebody to get them maybe from social media to a site, knowing that they may either be an active or a passive buyer?
So that's a really good question, because there's you get 800 different social media sites, right? Where do you start? Obviously, Facebook being the biggest.
Sure.
And the most important. I would say the best thing you can do, I mean, brand, all of those things are important. It's kind of like that home buyer analysis. You have different, you know, right brain, left brain kind of people. But I would say the best thing you can do, and this is again a Forrester Research Group statistic, and that is if you tell me your story, right, I'm the general public, you're telling me we're the best at this, or we do this, or we have these types of communities, about 25% of us believe you, take you at your word. This is where social media comes into play. If your customers, if your homeowners, if your community dwellers are telling me the same story, that increases from 25% to 75%. So I would say the best thing you can do on social media is get your homeowners active, do community events, make your community amazing, get people excited. You know, we talk about people talking about is a huge component in how well you rank or if you show up, if you can even be found, right? And there's a number of ways to do that, and we don't have 10 hours to go through Facebook's algorithms, but I would say that's the best thing you can do is make sure on social media that your people are engaged, they're talking, you know, they're voting of this or that, right? This room or this room, how would you decorate? That's all just really key components, I think, in building part of that trust to get me to, you know, engage with you.
Sure. And I'm going to follow up with a couple questions about that as well, as far as the builder side of things, and for you guys to stick around, and because what I'm going to be asking is just how does a builder who moves on from a community and a lot of times maintain that relationship? I know that's been a challenge for some of you guys out there, but I actually think right there, it's make people swoon. You know, I mean, how many times, and a lot of buying starts with the female. You know, she's in the home the most. It's the home issues because she's the caretaker ultimately. And so when she's looking at something and God, I want that next step, making her want to be a part of that community is a great way to increase a passive buyer to even become an active buyer, and just people to be jealous that, hey, I know people who live over here and it's just the greatest place to live is a great starting point.
And I actually believe the statistic is 78% of all decisions in the home buying process are a woman's.
Correct. So we're actually going to get just more actionable. And Chad, tell us a little bit about our 10 crazy ideas.
So these are just things, grab what you think interests you. These are pretty quick things you can do to, I guess, put your toe into the digital water, right, if you will. And I'm going to have you spin it a little bit because I can't see.
Sure.
And I haven't memorized it. So map the customer journey, the touch points. We've talked about that probably 3 times in the last hour. Increase interactive content. That really could be as simple as a Matterport. If you don't know what a Matterport is, type it in, matterport.com. They're amazing. Make sure you look at the dollhouse view. Those are spectacular. They look great. That's an interactive piece of content. You could also do things as simple as image map floor plans that you already have and add little interior images or renderings. Be proud of your photo rendering gallery. I think you had mentioned earlier, photos.
Yes.
If you're not sure where to start, get a nice camera, or I think the iPhone 7 has a great camera.
Yes.
Go into your kitchen, take 10 pictures of your kitchen from different angles. That is everyone's favorite room in the home.
Yeah. How do you feel, Chad, about no pictures, iPhone pictures, professional pictures?
You know, it's interesting. So it's tough to gauge because some iPhones can take some really good pictures.
Take full-length video.
Yeah, they can. So the statistics we've actually tracked are black and white renderings, stick-drawn renderings, floor plans, to color, to photo reel, that kind of thing. And there's actually a 30% swing in traffic, right? So initially, if you're looking at search results, so I'm looking at realtor.com, let's say, and I see all these search results, and I see black and white images, and then I see photos, and then I see, you know, just color stuff, kind of what we call industry standard. They're okay. Google SketchUp would be a good example. It's better than black and white. It's not quite professional.
Right.
It's still a 15% going to Google SketchUp from black and white. You know, so you obviously you want to do the best you can, but you have to prioritize your budget too.
Right.
You can't just go hire a professional and have, you know, the midnight, or not midnight, but the twilight dust magic hour type photos, because they're almost impossible to get perfect.
Yeah, how do you see that?
Which is why you might be better off rendering them. Frankly, renderings have gotten amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's about a 30% swing in people seeing your search result and ignoring it versus clicking through, and it is image-based.
That's awesome. Chad's here to give you the stats and validate us a little bit in the fact that, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's 15% better.
Right.
The next step's not perfect, but it's 15% better. Do something. I can't tell you how, like, can I just get one picture of this? And it's like, you can see the small imperfection or there's something. And, you know, we don't want to be showing any manufacturing flaws, obviously. I mean, there are big no-nos. But for the most part, something is better than nothing, and it's, you know, there's percentages behind it. So rather than just saying, hey, we don't want to do it until we have the professional stuff, start with something, because you're missing out on conversions and leads.
So I'll give you actually just another stat. So I'm here to be the geek.
I like it.
On all of the.
We want to hear them.
So, and again, it goes to interior images. They're crucial. So we spend in our lives 8 out of every 24 hours, 1/3 of our lives, in the master suite. I try to get 8 hours of sleep. I know it doesn't always work out. So what we see in listings are, I have 3 exterior renderings, A, B, and C, right? And then I have maybe 3 interior pictures, a kitchen, a living space, and a bedroom. Statistically speaking, if I'm spending 1/3 of my life in the master suite, if you're going to give me 30 pictures, 10 of them should be the master suite.
Right there.
And that's something a lot of people forget. The master bathroom, do I have a private door for the commode? You know, I mean, all of that is important to people determining whether or not they want to get in their car, drive through the snow, and visit your model home.
Absolutely, and I think that applies to new and resale.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I don't think there's any difference there at all. Any other of these ideas you want to touch on?
You know, the interactive stuff, you know, you can kind of just basically go through it. VR, AR, there's a builder in Las Vegas. They're a little high-end custom, and they use virtual reality as part of their design center process. They'll actually let you design the kitchen with the Oculus Rift on. That's pretty neat. Self-guided tours, online and in person. You know, you could even have a little video of somebody kind of guiding you through the website, right? Don't forget to click on our gallery and look at our kitchens.
Oh
you know,
my gosh.
There's little things you can do that don't cost a lot of money, that are letting you experiment. And then the most important thing about all these 10 ideas is if you're not tracking them, you're not determining what it did for your business. And you have to track it. I know the market's great and we're moving a lot of houses and inventory's low, but if you're not tracking, you're not learning.
And that's as simple as call tracking numbers that are easy to set up, unique UTM URLs, which we've kind of talked about, and you can always go to our blog. We have tutorials on how to build those out. And so yeah, we definitely want to be tracking and optimizing at all times. One thing I see here that I know some of my clients have talked about, but the kiosks and iPads. For me, again, I think we can do the broad campaign to get people in, but I don't know that we're doing enough to close the people that got in. You know what I mean? I mean, this applies to e-commerce. This applies to B2B. This applies to B2C, retail. I mean, your best customers are the ones who's already come through the door, and yet they're the ones who oftentimes get the least amount of marketing and or customer support attention.
Sure.
And so I just think the kiosks and iPads are things where, okay, I've come in and the sales guy talked to me. Today he's not here. What is something else that I can engage with? So kind of hopefully gave you guys some actionable tips. I think that there are literally just things you can go do right now, and for me, as I've talked, go do something, and it starts with media and it goes with content. There are providers like BDX and many others, Matterport, that are really bringing this up into a modern day marketing technology level, and it's not all that expensive.
It's not.
Matterport is a few $100s, and if you're paying more than that or getting quotes, give us a call, because it has exponentially come down because it was high. You know what I mean? It used to be hard. Droning used to be super expensive. It's all come down. You got more drones, you got more businesses popping up. The businesses to support what real estate companies do from a marketing and sales tactic are now there. And so it's about you kind of finding them and utilizing them. So just kind of summarize, want to touch on a few points here. So we all know things have changed a lot since the industry response to sales and marketing has not followed at the same pace though, and we've done kind of beat that one. But big things are happening in our local market, and if you're not aware of that, make sure that you're reading the real estate magazines or following somebody like Forbes.
Forbes talks about Utah's economy.
Yeah, Forbes and I mean BDX has a great resource center. Fluid has now done an entire month of real estate resources, and so there's a lot of companies out there trying to keep you ahead. And so just subscribe to their feeds, do what you can just to stay up and be current. There's actually, I'll give a plug to a company, Keeping Current Matters, just because they had a good name, and keeping current does matter. And so they provide relevant statistics and content that you can steal and white label if you just don't have the time to be putting this stuff out. And I know that BDX also has a resource library of that.
We do. We have more information than anybody really wants.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. Like, oh, I don't have time to write that. They wrote it for you.
Yeah.
They white labeled it for you. Send it as your own.
Yeah.
So just in home, not all markets are created equals. We know the resale market's a little bit ahead of the new home market, and that they're doing a bit better job of following up. And so in the new home side, you know, maybe take some of the tactics of the resale and even the rental. I mean, if you want to see people who churn, look at the rental market. How are they doing it, and try to steal some of the tactics from that. It's time to break the traditional sales and market. Now is the time. Consider frequency, segmentation, buyer types. I think that there were some great slides that Chad has provided us on how you can map your journey and the different messaging that was there. And then there's just now more tools than ever. What other summary tactics? Anything else we left off you want to touch?
I would say one thing to add to the whole digital movement is one of the best reasons it's less expensive than traditional is because you can repurpose almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it. So if you get a Matterport, see if your Matterport provider will turn it into a self-guided video.
Sure.
So I don't have to do it on my iPad or with my keyboard or whatever. It'll just take me through. Now you have video content, right? So repurpose everything you can.
Absolutely. We basically will turn this webinar into about 27 different pieces of content. And so this will take us an hour to do, and now we have months and months worth of different, we'll break down little slides and things like that. And so repurpose, reuse, and make, you know, larger things that you do have to put a little bit of effort, but that it trickles down, and so you're not making 27 individual things. That is kind of the end of the actual presentation, but right now we're going to take a little bit of time for Q&A, and so we will just briefly jump out of here and go to any comments that we may have received. So kind of relevant first questions, and we'll come back here real quick, but is just how to market on a budget. We were just saying this stuff has actually gotten cheaper. Chad, I think you could probably lend the most insights with pricing and things of that nature.
Sure. Realistically, you should be considering about 0.75% to about 1.5% of every home sale to your marketing budget. Now that breaks out into a ton of different things because our product price is so high. But realistically, and let's just for numbers' sake, if you decide I sell $300,000 homes and of each home I'm going to take 1% and put it into marketing, that 1% should actually be split 50-50 between traditional and digital. And so that's really the best advice we can give is you should be around 1%. If you're at 0.75, maybe because your house, you know, your houses are 750,000, or maybe you're a starter home or a townhome and you're down at 250, maybe you want to have a little bit more than 1%. But that's where your budget should be. That is taken from national builders and large regional builders. I mean, these are averages. So I don't know if that answers the question because we try to do everything on a budget, right?
Yeah.
It just depends on what that budget is. But certainly repurposing digital is less expensive. And if you're finding 75% of your budget is traditional, and I know you said some nice things about the print and things like that, but really maybe think about scaling some of that back because just on our sites alone, we have 12,000 shoppers every month that are prone to buying new homes.
They're intenders, right?
Yeah, that come to our sites for specific to the two major markets, Provo or Salt Lake, Ogden, and we don't sell that many new homes, right? We don't build 12,000 homes a month.
Right.
So that means we could be doing a better job of capturing those and not letting them go to the resale market.
Right. Precisely. And I think if anything, that's just a great benchmark, and then from there, how do you maybe just make better deals on your media and make some decisions? And for me, if you're going to market on a budget, it's prioritization.
Absolutely.
What are the things that are actually going to have the highest impact for the least amount of dollars. And when I say least amount of dollars, that doesn't mean that they are the cheapest things. It's just that you don't need 6 tactics to equal to 1, and therefore you might actually get it for a cheaper percentage. So make sure you prioritize what's really bringing in the leads, and that goes back to what Chad was saying. Make sure you're tracking.
And I would say, actually, if you want help prioritizing, we have the statistics on what happens with somebody finding a listing and going through based on the quality of their digital presence.
Yeah.
So if you want help prioritizing, we actually have white papers that will.
Well, and
spell it out.
and as we send this recap out, maybe we can grab that resource and send
Sure.
it along to everybody. But even just on that, we have so many different opportunities that have been provided to us, and the resources that we might be behind the times with real estate, but the history is there, which is one of the really nice things. You have the tech, which is like startup, and so you don't have that benchmarking. And so one of the few things is these numbers are accurate and proven over many, many years, and nationwide. They can be regionalized. There's enough of it that I would say it's statistically significant and something that you could more or less trust. Second question. Are there different tactics when marketing a single property versus a community?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly your budget changes, right?
Right.
And I would say with a single property, what's tough about that is usually, I know we have some brokers and realtors that are listening in, and
Sure.
so my experience is new. But what my experience has been is usually it's a troubled lot in a community, or the last one, or it's difficult to move. So I was talking to a builder this morning. We kind of joked about, there's 2 sides to every coin. So I would look at it like, market it as a last chance, last opportunity to be in this neighborhood. It is sold out. And, that's how I would look at it, as kind of a psychological takeaway.
Sure.
This is your last opportunity to get this
Spin
house. Spin it, exactly right. And I would spend, and if it is a troubled property, I would spend a little money on some video. If it's a resale home, I still would spend some money on a video.
Yeah.
In my opinion, versus a community. That's the advantage you have as a home builder, is you get to talk about the amenities. You get to get people in, not based on a specific product,
Right.
but a location, sense of community.
Precisely. And I would even say, and most builders are going to roll their eyes and say, we don't go back and do this kind of thing, but maybe put a little money into the troubled home, make
Sure.
it that, and actually have that be an investment for reputation more than an investment for the sell itself. Because if that troubled home starts to have detrimental effects as people are looking at it, and that being the last one, are they judging you as a builder based on that troubled home?
Sure.
And so, always put your best foot forward.
Actually, I have another example on that.
Please.
Because I'm about to put my used home up for sale, and we made some decisions. We built the house in 2001. We made some decisions with a couple of rooms that I don't believe someone else would make a decision with.
Right.
Right.
Very common.
So my family room, I'm using quotes. My family room is actually my home office. Right. It's got my desk with my return and my filing cabinet. I mean, it's an office. It's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't work from home, that's a wasted space for you.
Right.
The second space is we built a loft. It could be an amazing teen room, but my teens are now 21 and 23 that live here, actually. Excuse me. So we turned it into kind of a music room, right? I have my drum set up there, my wife's guitar, a couple of things. It looks great, but it actually is a great teen room. So I'm having both those rooms virtually staged. So I'm taking pictures of them empty, and I'm staging my office as a family room, and I'm staging the music room as a teen room. And I'm using those two. Now I'm gonna say, retail on that, it's gonna cost me $200, right? So the question is it worth $200 to get full asking price on my home? Because
Right.
I gave somebody the vision of a
Absolutely.
different use in a room.
And I can't, we didn't talk a ton about it in the presentation itself, but in the millennial world, I think that is so huge, because I do not believe that millennials understand the bare bones. We have not been, we're not the builders, it was the generations that came before us, and we're kind of behind computers, we're behind our phones, and so when we come in, we kind of see it the way that it is.
Right.
And it's very hard to visualize, whereas the older generations were looking at the bones, and we're kind of coming in and be like, I don't see myself in this space. So I think obviously you have the stats, great philosophy as well, and it sounds like you'd be a fun guy to hang out with drumming up there.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Good Good for you. Let's take a third question. And we did have a question come in that was, do you market commercial properties different than residential? I think we've talked about that. The answer is ultimately yes, but I think there's a lot to pull from both. And so for time's sake, we'll kind of go past that one. But
one thing I will add, no, because we actually, I mean, it's B2C versus B2B, right?
Right.
You know, with commercial properties. But I will tell you, one of the challenges with commercial properties is saying it's the exact same thing you just said. I can't visualize the space because it's not done. It's not finished out the way you might want it. If, say, it's an office space, you're going to come in and finish it that way. That's another time where virtual staging will come into place. You get a CAD file, you finish it out, and you add an open, conference room. Or you do things like that, and you can create that space 3 different ways for possibly $6,000. And I know it sounds like such a leap from the 200 I was talking about.
Sure.
But you're also talking about massive square footage, and and hiring your own architecture and doing some things. But
well, that's a buy on a 3-bedroom to a 5-bedroom, right?
Right.
I mean, if you can get the vision of that.
Mm-hmm. But that's I mean, I would absolutely, like you said, I would look at what kind of crossovers you had, and you can use, and there are a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, general marketing practices work, and we apply them from real estate to automotive to tech. So for the most part, content and things of those nature are going to reign true, but there's definitely B2B, B2C considerations. Let's move to the next question just real quick. I think it's an interesting one. And is it important to still market during the off season?
Oh, it's more important.
I like this question. Expand.
I think there's a quote that I'm going to ruin from like the chief marketing officer of AOL from some time ago, and she said something along the lines of,
Chad was on the internet at AOL as well.
Yeah, when they were sending out
secret that we talked about.
That's true. I am not a millennial. Guilty, but my kids are. Anyway, she said something really interesting. She said, when times are great, you have to market. When times are bad, you absolutely have to market. And what's interesting, so you take a market like this where we're moving homes and we're getting full asking price, or we're upgrading homes, new homes with more options, your profit margins are starting to go up. And we all want to like maybe squirrel them away or get better land deals or whatever, but this is a great time to actually grab some of those timeless digital assets that you can use forever. So as an example, I can sit a homeowner down in front of a video and get them to speak the world to me. The return on investment is forever on that, right? It's the Warren Buffett. Make sure your return on investment is forever. Okay. And then when times are tough, those are great. You've spent the money, but you got to get them out there now, right? Then you got to get somebody like Dustin to get your social media up and crank everything out. But you can never stop marketing. There's no resting on your laurels, particularly in real estate, because it's cyclical. If we know anything, there's another recession.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We don't know when.
Right.
If we did, we'd be rich.
Yeah.
But it will happen.
I'd be shorting it. Fantastic. We did have another question come in that was, is there a hierarchy of marketing channels? Chad addressed that a little bit earlier, and we will have a document, and not sure if we can, but we'll either have a link on the recap on our site of this webinar, or we might be able to just embed the product depending on just permissions from Chad's group, but you'll have access to that resource, which I think would be super valuable. So there is an answer. And then we want to take just one last question with the minute we have or so, and that question just is, how important are social media channels for builders?
And that's a really good question. We used to kind of say tinker around. Now we say you have to do it. And the reason is specific to reputation management. We touched on this. If you're building houses, somebody's upset with you.
Yep.
There's no way around it. And I know there's lots of stuff that happens, and there's miscommunication and this and that. But most likely, there are one of 4 websites they're out there complaining about you on, and we can put those somewhere. You can share those later if people want to go check out their own reputation.
Yep.
But yeah, that is a fact. So social media is important so that you're giving them an outlet to talk to you in case they're not so upset that they just want to find every social media site and complain about you. B, so you have additional content to push some of that negative down. I would say finally, if you're engaging people that are upset, you actually show that you're willing to work, that you're not closed off, that there's somebody behind there after closing. And so reputation management, I think, is the biggest reason, but there's probably 3 more. right?
Oh, yeah.
What if I want to put out a new floor plan? Use crowdsourcing, right? Shoot, there's too many to go into, but
Absolutely.
it's a must today, in our opinion. And it's Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and then if you have reputation issues, Google Plus is a great option.
Absolutely. I mean, reputation solely, and I think Chad's talking about reputation kind of after the fact, but maybe credibility in addition to reputation, the fact that who is this builder, and if you're not on Facebook, are you, even, is that a concern? And so that actually might cause negative emotion for people just to say this company really doesn't even exist. And so having a good digital footprint is a very positive thing and probably a necessity in the current times.
Yeah.
Chad, to expand on that, I'm going to give you a direct question I've been asked before.
Okay.
And I think you probably answered it, so might have you just answer again. But the question was, my Facebook has become a platform for complaints. I'm just going to shut it down. How do you respond?
Well, so it's the internet, right? It doesn't go away. It's forever.
Right.
There's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
I would spend the time to actually address every single thing individually and do your absolute. And now I'm not talking about building somebody a new home. I don't know if that's what we're talking about. If it's a home builder or something else.
It is a home builder.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not talking about building a new home or anything crazy, but really just addressing the issues is important. Even shutting your Facebook page down doesn't take it off of cached websites or archive.org. I can see anything I want on that.
Yep.
I would never ever recommend just hiding.
And I would agree with that. Internally, I think Fluid's stance on it is if they don't find you on Facebook, they will find you on Google, and you can't shut Google down. So they're going to find a platform to complain about you one way or the other. And so I think that there are more positives to having it than there are actual negatives. That is all the questions we have and time for today, and so I want to thank all of you out there for attending another Fluid Webinar Series event. This month's on real estate marketing. I want to say a very large thank you to Chad Bria. He is the digital marketing consultant for BDX. Chad, I think that the statistics and insights you've provided are not only actionable but accurate, and I think everybody out there will be better off for having gotten a chance to listen to you today. So thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We will be back next month with another industry event, and so continue to watch Fluid's content and you'll see what's up next. Have a great day.